Okay, we'll have a look at the Dendrobium Callista classification. There's quite a large amount of variety in this classification. You can't say they're all the same because they're in the same classification, because they are far from it. So as far as culture is concerned, I would suggest that any Dendrobium, the classification is one thing, and I'd put it in a nice to know category, if you see what I mean. You still need to get down to individual plant level. You will still find all sorts of conflicts of information advising you on that particular plant. This is Harveyanum, we know it well. Recommendation for this plant: dry winter rest or it won't bloom. Cobblers. This gets my normal winter rest, which is just reduced temperatures because it's winter time, and, you know, reduce watering because it's not growing so much. That's all I do. It doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't get any special treatment, and it blooms virtually continuously. So these blooms are not triggered by a specific dry, bright winter rest. They just happen. It just does it. This is another one in the group. This is a cross, but both its members are in the same group. This is a cross between Farmeri and Griffithianum. Not really looking like Harveyanum, is it? You know, leaves are all at the top, quite leathery and fleshy, you know. It blooms from nodes produced near the top of the cane, and I do have an S on the end of nodes. It doesn't just produce one, it can bloom several times on the same cane. Some of mine have. And under normal circumstances, you know, that's a node that should swell up and bloom. There's another one there. But it has actually bloomed down there once, but under normal circumstances the nodes are near the top of the cane after the sheaths finish, and more than one per cane. A trait of this group is pendulous rhizomes with lots of blooms on. They're not all like that, but you could safely say most of them are, and there's a high percentage of yellows in this classification. A lot are yellow. You know, in my case, that's probably why I've got a few of them. Okay, so that's another one. These two, let me just get show off out the way. These two don't even look like Dendrobiums. They look more like mini Cattleyas or something odd, but they're not your typical Dendrobiums because they've got more like pseudo-bulbs than canes, with a single leaf coming out the top. Now this is a cross, aggregatum cross with Jenkinsii. There's a lot of debate about both of those names as to whether they are synonyms or the same. I don't believe Jenkinsii and aggregatum are the same, but aggregatum is often called Lindleyi. And some people say they're different plants, some people say it's a synonym. Well, you get on and discuss it. We'll get on and grow the flipping plants. That's what we're good at, hopefully. But these are typified by naturally looking shriveled bulbs. That's what they look like. That's why I call them the wrinkled prune plant or the squash grape plant, because that's what they look like. New growths can come out from anywhere, quite honestly. In the middle of the old part, they can extend in little sets, like out to the right there. That was a load of new growth last year, and it's pushing out some more now. Some new growth hanging down the bottom, some coming out the middle of the plant. It pushes them out where it likes. Okay, now these two will not bloom without some form of winter rest. Now they don't need the really bright light element of the winter rest, but what they do need is the nighttime drop in temperatures. These need to get down at night, down to like 50, whatever that is in centigrade. What's 50? That's about 10, I think. So that's quite low nighttime temperatures, which if they stay in the grow room, they're not going to get, because quite a lot of my other orchids would die at temperatures that low. Yeah, so these have just got to go somewhere else. So they go up in my cool bedroom, and I do the best I can. This one bloomed for the first time for me this year, and it had 2 blooms. That's a poor spike, and only the one. But I didn't start my winter rest until January. It needs to start end of November, beginning of December. It lost 5 or 6 weeks of its resting period, and I think once it had acclimatised to being rested, it got woken up because spring arrived. So I didn't do it properly last year. This year, both of these will get a proper, much drier, not necessarily much brighter, and lower nighttime temperature type winter rest, and we'll see if they bloom next spring. You just got to keep chopping and changing things until you get the blooms you're after. These are late winter, early spring bloomers. They might have an odd spike now and again at other times, but that's generally when they bloom. So that's the bit you've got to work at. And these do take a bit of work. Not ideal to grow in your home, really. Where are you going to get nighttime temperatures of 10 degrees, 50 degrees Fahrenheit in your home? Because you're going to feel flipping uncomfortable. I'm lucky I got a spare bedroom, shut the heating off, put them on the windowsill and hope. That's all I can do. But I will keep my eye on the watering. It says do not let them shrivel beyond their natural look. And if you see, last winter this one had too little water. These bulbs have gone. They really have flattened off and they don't plump up. Whereas this one didn't get its winter rest and the bulbs didn't shrivel. So there's a happy balance in there somewhere. Not that easy, but they don't get no water, they need some. That's just how it needs to be. They would get morning dew in their natural environment. They'd get misty, foggy days as well, and they'd get bright, sunny days as well. So, you just got to try and do your best. That's all you can do. So that's that little set. Okay, so that's the Callistas set of 4 for me, but included in the 4 plants are actually 6 individual species. The 2 that go in pairs are the primary crosses, obviously, but could be treated the same. The Farmeri Griffithianum cross, both of those individual species can be treated the same, and it is said that those nodes are triggered into blooming by a little dry spell. So it's recommended that although that gets heavily watered and fed when it's actively growing, it's allowed to completely dry out in between, because that's what will trigger the blooms. And the blooms can happen virtually any time from what I can see, providing the light's good enough and the day lengths are good enough. So with me, that's sort of spring, summer and towards autumn. Harveyanum itself, this is an individual one for me. I didn't take any notice of what I was told I should do. I did my own thing, and it's worked well for this plant. This plant gets watered and fed well when the new canes are pushing on, and it blooms on and off almost throughout the year. It does have a quiet spell in the winter. The day lengths are just short, so the whole plant just slows down. These 2 over here can be treated the same, Jenkinsii and aggregatum. There are other similar plants that can be treated the same way. If they don't get a winter rest and get those nighttime drops in temperature, they just either won't bloom at all, as this one did for several years, or they bloom poorly. To get them to bloom well, they've just got to have the right treatment. So these are not easy, Quite honestly, Griffithianum and Farmeri are not classed as easy orchids to look after, prosper and bloom. They're classed as quite difficult. My plant sort of does okay. I wouldn't say it's brilliant, but it does okay, and it does bloom. It's bloomed last year quite a few times, and it's already bloomed this year. This one's had 2 blooms on 1 spike ever, and I've owned it for quite a few years. This one's a bit new. That's, I got that towards the end of last year, so that hasn't been given much of a chance yet, and I didn't rest it last winter because it was a new plant and looked quite young. So that hasn't been given a chance yet. So that's that little set, and as you can see, 4 individual plants, 6 species involved, and yet the care can vary dramatically to hardly any care at all to some quite serious requirements just in those 4 individual plants. Okay, that's that set done then. I'll move on to something else in part 2. Thanks for dropping by. Hope you found parts of this interesting, if not all of it, or none of it. It depends if you grow dendrobiums or not. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.